The latest tech.
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
Interviews.
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that's happening.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statements.
This is Double Tap TV Town Hall.
Welcome to this Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. It's going to be a lot of fun as we talk all about technology in the workplace, or, well, these days, working from home, I guess. We've got a special guest lined up, plus a guest host, and I am Marc Aflalo, joined by Stephen Scott each and every single week on Double Tap TV and this special Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV. Stephen, feeling good?
I feel great, and I am loving doing these new idea town halls. I just think this is brilliant, and it's giving us a chance to get to our listener and viewer questions, which is, of course, what this is all about. But it's great fun because it gives us great ideas and hopefully gives you some good answers as well.
We are joined on this edition of the Town Hall by a familiar face and voice on AMI. You know him as Grant Hardy. Welcome back to a Town Hall, Grant.
Hello. It is so great to talk tech, something that has always been empowering to me, and hopefully we'll have a little bit of fun too. I'm sure we will.
That is the goal here, guys, and we're talking all about technology at work. And before we dive into questions, which is what this is all about, let's get schooled, so to speak, on working from home, courtesy of our friend, the co-host of Double Tap Canada on AMI Audio, Sean Priest.
Well, I think over the last 12 months it's been proven that working from home is not just a viable option. Actually, in some cases, it's the preferable option. And lots of companies have already come out and said that even when the pandemic is over and lockdown and social distancing is gone, they're still going to offer the working from home option. Now, obviously, for many people, great news. But for us, in the blind or visually impaired community, it's so much more than that. Because as we all know, unemployment in our community, it's an issue, and it has been for years. I think mainly mobility has been a problem, but also accessibility of workplace equipment. Now, with working from home, a lot of those problems disappear. Mobility, not so much of an issue, obviously, and also because we choose the technology that we want to use, then we choose accessible options, which of course is fantastic. So there you go. Working from home, not just a hippie dream, but the viable option, and in some cases, the preferable option.
Sean, Stephen, you and I have worked from home, or I guess away from employers, for a lot of time. But I imagine for a second that you're just starting out. I can imagine that being a little bit jarring for some, no?
Yeah, I can. For people like us, it's maybe not such a big deal because we're techies and we figure it out. But for many, especially of my blind colleagues at work, it was a massive challenge, a big shock to the system. For lots of people in workplaces, you have IT people on hand to answer all of your queries, or there's a staff member who can just pop over and have a look at your computer or, help you with your issue should you need it. But for many at the beginning of the pandemic, that support was gone because every member of the team was trying to figure out how to connect their Office VPN, how does Teams work, what's a Zoom call, and work out whether they were going to use their sofa or their dining table as an office desk.
Yeah, and even these town halls, guys, are recorded remotely. I'm in Montreal, Stephen in Glasgow, Grant, you in Vancouver, and yet we're making it all happen. And thankfully, you guys at home are kind of, joining us for the ride because you've sent us a lot of questions about this topic. We invited you a while back to join us and send us those questions. So let's dive into an example right now of exactly how this town hall is going to run. Quite simple. We're going to bring up your questions. Some are videos, some are emails, some are on Twitter. And we're going to answer them. We even got a special guest lined up who might have a little bit more expertise than us in certain fields. But really, at the end of it, it's that simple. So, without further ado, let's dive into the first question from someone, sounds familiar. Her name is Ramya.
Hey, Double Tap. Ramya Amuddin from Kelly and Company here. And I wanted to let you know that I really do miss the office. Some days I really, really miss it. Everyone is missing each other so much because there's lots of socializing that happens at the office and not as much at home. But, I've been keeping myself company, turning on all my screen readers, maxing out the volume. Also, really talking to my smart speakers. I have a few here in the studio room. Anyways, cranking up the volume on my Apple Watch, etc. This is the at-home version of me, lots of noise. So the transition I'm imagining back to the office will be lots of fun. And I'm wondering how you guys are planning to keep quiet when you get back to the office, that privacy, that putting in earbuds mode, etc. Like, is there something that you'll be doing to kind of keep that mode going? Because I don't know, some of this stuff, it'll be hard to go back to, like just wearing earbuds all the time. And we can't always enjoy that sunny weather, sitting outside doing our work. Sometimes we gotta go back to the office.
Stephen, you're used to making lots of sounds in the office and being over inundated with input, whether it be screens or sounds. How do you think you're going to manage?
I really struggled with, using JAWS because I learned JAWS only 2-3 years ago when I had to, essentially. And it was interesting for me because I had to get used to an office full of people. And also I had to get used to really focusing in on the voice that I was trying to listen to that was giving me the information so I could use the computer, in this case the screen reader. And I really struggled with that. And I used to love to come home and feel that freedom of having the screen reader out in the open. I was able to listen to it from afar and it wasn't just trapped in my ears. As Grant says, those robotic voices after a while can get a bit grating. And as we get back to the office, I think the key here is going to be hardware, actually. Actually, another point Rami made was about smart speakers. I am really going to miss turning around and asking Lady A, what's in my calendar? Or, what time is it? Or, what's coming up next? Or when's the next bus to whatever? I can't do that in the office. I am looking at options though, because you can get Lady A on Windows 10 as an app through the Windows Store. So is that something I could possibly do? Maybe. So again, there are solutions to this. We're going to have to think about them. And you know what? The office of tomorrow is going to have to adjust.
Here's another question from JP in Quebec. I like this, pretty close to my home.
Hey there, my name is JP from Quebec. My question is, so my office started using Teams because it was included in Microsoft 365. At first there was a lot of stuff missing, like closed captioning and things like that. But over the last year, there's been a lot of updates, which has been really good, monthly updates, even faster than that. Is that something that we can expect to continue moving forward?
That's a great question, and also a great segue, guys, because our next guest might just have the expertise needed to cover that topic. Actually, he really does. Let's take a quick break here on this Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV. I am Marc Aflalo with Stephen Scott and Grant Hardy. We'll be back in a moment with our special guest.
Double Tap TV's Town Hall will be right back. This is Double Tap TV Town Hall.
We are back on this Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys for always getting involved. Our email address is feedback@ami.ca, and if you're not following us on Twitter, it is @DoubleTapCanada. Don't forget to use the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, anytime you've got a question for us. And now on Instagram @DoubleTap.online. I am Marc Aflalo with Stephen Scott and Grant Hardy. We're talking all about the workplace, whether that be working from home or working back in an office. Stephen, we've got a special guest lined up.
That's right, Mark, we do. He is the head of modern work and security at Microsoft Canada. He's been working at Microsoft for 16 years now and has held positions all over the Office ecosystem. Jason, welcome to Double Tap TV.
Thanks so much. Great to be here.
Jason, it's great to have you here, and I think it makes, that amount of time at one company makes you a pretty good resource when it comes to working from, I guess, anywhere?
Anywhere, that's right.
What are some of the challenges you yourself faced when this pandemic hit? Were you ready for it?
You know what, Mark? It's such a great question. I get two sort of funny and consistent questions, which is, hey, were you ready for it? And then two, what do you think's coming and what's the crystal ball? Listen, I'll be honest. No, I wasn't. From a technology and a tools point of view, absolutely. As a company, we've been empowered to work flexibly for quite some number of years. I often will share this with customers, which is my Surface device and my phone gives me access to every piece of computing and data that I need as a function of the way that we've deployed technology, obviously inside the organization, but was my home and set up and configured for everyday meetings and being on calls. No, not at all. But I think to me, the really important piece of this, which is the people side of it and the human side of it. And I think it's been certainly something I've struggled through, I've worked through, I've supported my team through, and candidly continue to work through. And so it's been a learning journey for us as a company. It's been a learning journey for me personally, but it's been great. Yes, some downfalls, but overall, I think it's been really exciting. And I think a great learning moment for, frankly, every organization around the world in many ways.
Yeah, it's so nice that we were kind of technologically prepared, but I think everybody has a different story, depending on how many kids you have, if you have kids, spouses, partners, and it's very different. Before we took a break, we heard a question from JP in Quebec, and I figured that was a perfect segue into introducing you. So let's play that question again and get your feedback on this.
Hey there, my name is JP from Quebec. My question is, so my office started using Teams because it was included in Microsoft 365. At first there was a lot of stuff missing, like closed captioning and things like that. But over the last year, there's been a lot of updates, which has been really good, monthly updates, even faster than that. Is that something that we can expect to continue moving forward?
What do you say to that?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So the short answer is absolutely. And I wish I could give you the absolute stat off the top of my head, but I think there's some 150 different features that we've shipped, frankly, in the last 12 months. And you kind of made the joke, which is, hey, I've been around for 16 years, and I've been around the office business for quite a number of years. And I think back to the world where we used to ship software every 3 years, to a world where we're innovating at an unbelievable pace. And I think, yes, I'll call it shift to remote work has been a profound, compelling event for us to really be inspired to enable all the millions of users around the world to work in different ways. But frankly, it's been amazing feedback from our customers, which is, hey, we wish we could do this, or I wish we could accomplish this. That feedback we take very seriously. We have the Teams user voice website where anybody can submit feature requests. They can follow and upvote and follow responses from our engineering organization as it relates to how quickly or how soon we'll ship that feature. But it's been an amazing turn in terms of agile development within our teams to really enable people to be super successful in a world where we are all working, frankly, from anywhere.
I think back to the days in my last job, just as I started, I remember receiving Office in a box with a CD inside, and you would see an update, whenever, right? Things have changed so much, and it's brilliant. I mean, it really is.
So we get a question here from Philip in Nova Scotia. He writes, I'm not a big fan of subscribing for software because upgrading doesn't always mean it's going to work with my screen reader. Are there any plans for me to be able to buy a new version of Office, for example, and own it forever instead of having to pay monthly?
So the short answer is yes, which is today we continue to obviously manufacture and sell what I'll call our perpetual products, we call it, which is kind of that box idea, obviously. Now it's less about a CD than it is a download and a product key that you enter in a web browser. And so we continue to make that as an option that's available for consumers as well as for businesses. But I kind of go back to the discussion we were just having with Grant and Stephen, which is the ability to innovate quickly and ship those capabilities to users, again, whether it's you as an individual or in a business context, is predicated on what I'll call that cloud-connected experience of Microsoft 365, which is the ability to harness the power, the elasticity, the flexibility of the cloud to ship and push innovations faster is really functionally tied to that subscription service. And again, it's this idea that says it's always on, it's always connected, it's always current, because we can all sort of associate to some of the pains and challenges managing patches and all of those other pieces. But it's really about that innovation and the idea of being able to connect to automation, being able to take advantage of capabilities like artificial intelligence in simplest things, right? Which is, again, think about spell checks and some of the capabilities, even from an accessibility point of view, in terms of some of the work that we've done to be able to use natural user interfaces and linguistics to things like closed captioning that Steve talked about.
Flashing back to your, earlier days, 16 years ago, how has the mentality changed? Because, back then, you weren't thinking about a constantly connected piece of software, right? And at some point over the past 16 years, it's shifted. We finally saw that, wait a second, networks were getting faster. People are going to be able to be connected affordably, so there was a shift. And did you see that shift coming, or is it something that kind of caught you off guard?
I won't profess to be the engineering expert for the company, but I think
no one else is here. You can do it.
We can certainly associate to our consumer lives, and I'll say maybe pick on something that may have some bad old connotations to it, but something like Napster, right? Which was, hey, in many ways, highly disruptive at its time in terms of music services, but it was all about streaming. You think about app stores, like those foundational things that, yes, absolutely have been transformational at their moments in time, has really created this culture of, hey, I always want to be able to be connected. I want to have access to the latest and greatest. And so in many ways, it's just really created that innate capability or desire in all of us to be connected at all times. And then obviously, as we were talking earlier, which is just the advancements in the mobile form factors and the computing power that we have access to, you need that always on connectedness. And so without question, you saw sort of the broader ecosystem changes around these ideas, subscription services and cloud connected services. But in many ways, it was this simple idea, which is, I remember back in the day where the only way that you could work with somebody on a document was to send it back and forth over email. And how many times did you get into this sort of, okay, who has the latest version, or what is the latest version? And so you got into these, I'll call it collaborative sort of challenges, which really spawned the idea of what is now SharePoint. But OneDrive, certainly in a consumer context as well as a business context, where you can centrally store information and content that empowers individuals to work together in ways that were never previously possible. So again, I don't know that we created it. I think the market created it, as it often does, in just sort of that desire to have sort of that always on consumption model, but also that always on access model that we are certainly all privy to today.
Can I speak to the point that Philip made regarding screen readers? Because I think this is an interesting area. In the blind community, there are a lot of people who are holding on, Jason, to Windows XP and Office 2007. And it's actually quite common for people to have a machine set up that way, maybe not connected to the, well, I guess you need to be connected to the internet to get email, right? But, they're not using it as their main machine perhaps, but they're familiar with it, they're used to it, and that's fine. And what I say to those people is it's time to move on, guys. Trust me on this, because you want the latest features. It's not, and I'm sure you, in your role, you know this implicitly, that it's not just about having the latest features. It's about security. It's about privacy. And that's key as well. And I think, when it comes to screen readers, they update as well. And it's important we get the latest versions of those that will work with these new features in Office 365 and all these other programs.
Yeah, it's such a great point, Steve. And obviously we take, I'll say, a broad ecosystem approach, which is we recognize there are peripherals, whether it be for things like screen readers as an example, but things as simple as printers. And again, which is try to move the ecosystem forward together. But there's an important piece in there, which is each of us as individuals and organizations more broadly, but each of us as individuals, which is there is some behavioral attributes to it, which is you do need to update to stay current and connected. Security is just such a profound example of that, which is unfortunately the security attack vectors, or the bad actors as they are often referred to, are only getting smarter and more aggressive, and our ability to respond to those. If you have software that's 5 years old, 10 years old, just think about the number of risk factors that creates given the speed of innovation that's happened. And so there is a really important piece to this, which is, I'll call it currency, as we often refer to it in terms of technology, because it's both a benefit in the context of innovation and being able to take advantage of those, I'll call it cloud connected services, but it's also about protection around things like security and privacy, as you touched on. So really great point.
We got a question here from Stuart.
Hey, this is Stuart. I'm wondering what kind of tech you have on your desk that makes your life easier every single day.
Wow, I should turn the camera around. So I'll give you the play-by-play tech tour. So obviously a Surface Pro, it is my go-to device for work. I have a Surface Go, which is kind of my mobile if I want to unplug, sit back, take notes. Again, cloud connected, so it's always on the same. I don't have to sort of share files back and forth. I could jot notes down and brainstorm inside things like OneNote and have access to it on any device, frankly. two big monitors. One, I'll say a big 32-inch curved and a big wide 27-inch that I tend to use more in portrait mode. And so if you think about sort of just keeping an eye on streams of chats through Teams and email, I can do that in a much longer configuration or reviewing large documents. And then I've got my Surface Duo, which is my go-to mobile device at the moment that I keep close in hand. And then lastly is the ergonomics, both chair, mouse, keyboard, because again, this shift to remote work has really inspired us to think about how do we create comfortable environments in which we can work. The last piece that I wish I had, but is on order, is a stand-up desk. It's the one piece that I've not done in terms of a standing desk, but I have one of the bamboo boards or balance boards. And so my team will often laugh because they'll get on a call with me and I'll be swaying back and forth because I'm trying to balance on my board to make sure that I'm keeping myself mobile. And then the last piece, obviously, a wide collection of headsets from AirPod Pros so that I can take my calls on the go. In this world of remote work, trying to find that balance of well-being has become a really important conversation, something that I keep an eye on. My team knows usually between sort of 2:30 and 3:30 every day, you'll find me taking calls, walking the dog. And so having a set of AirPod Pros connected to my mobile device, I can transfer my calls out of Teams directly to my mobile device without blinking an eye and continue those while I get a little bit of exercise into me and make sure the dog gets his exercise too.
Now, one of the joys of being blind is I don't have to actually have a screen in front of me. I do use a screen because I do have a little bit of vision, so I'm able to use a screen, but I tend to use it more for my video, my visual work. If I'm using anything else, generally doing my emails or on Teams calls, I'm just sitting there listening. So what I do is I have a 32-inch monitor on my desk. In front of that, I've got my Logitech MX Keys keyboard, which, by the way, is amazing. What I love about it is, as well as it being a great keyboard, I can have 3 devices connected at once to it. I can just switch to which one I want. Now, in my case, I have a Lenovo T590 laptop, which is for my day-to-day work at one of my jobs, and then in my other work I've got a Lenovo T490 that sits behind it, again in a dock, and it just sits there, and those are connected to numbers 1 and 2 of the selection switches on my keyboard. And then number 3 is my Mac Mini. And again, it's connected. It's the only one actually connected to a monitor because it's the one I tend to do my visual work on, my Final Cut work or whatever I need to do. So yeah, I mean, it's actually a lot of tech under the desk, not a huge amount on the desk. And I'm with you, you need a good space. So I invested at the beginning of the pandemic. I invested just before everything locked down in a big corner desk and a decent office chair. One of those, 24-hour operator chairs that they use in call centers, because I wanted something I could sit on for hours on end. I'm very lazy, Jason. I'm not standing up. So I want to sit down in comfort, and that's what I did. And as for a headset, well, unlike you, I've got a range of different things around, some wired options, as well as I've got the Jabra Elite Evolve 65T series, which is a really nice headset to use on Teams calls. Nice memory foam earbuds and ear cans, so it makes it really pleasant to listen to and wear. And I've also got the AirPods Pro sitting there. I will also say I've got the AirPods Max sitting there, but I'm only saying that just to show off.
This is like a work episode of Cribs, guys. This is what it's become.
Hey, that's right, yeah.
This is a special edition of Double Tap TV. We're talking all things, I guess, work from home, work from the office. We'll take a quick break and be right back.
Double Tap TV's Town Hall will be right back. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to this Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. We're talking all things working from home or technology in the workplace, really. I am Marc Aflalo with Stephen Scott and Grant Hardy, and we're excited to be joined by Jason Brommett from Microsoft. Wow, there was a lot of stuff coming out. Jason, I hope you're having fun. I hope we're not keeping you too long.
Really enjoying the conversation.
Now, Jason, we were pretty excited when we heard about the new Surface devices and accessories. I love Microsoft products, and I love the innovation that's been done here. Have you had a chance to get your hands on a Surface Laptop 4 and all the accessories? And if so, how do you see them helping out in the workplace?
I have a feeling, and I think I kind of joked about this earlier, apparently you have connections that I don't, because I don't yet have my hands on one. I consider myself fortunate, which is I got my hands on one of the Surface Duos before they were available here in Canada. And so I tend to I'll say be one of the first to sign up for the opportunity to play with new tools or new toys, for lack of a better statement. So you're ahead of me a little bit on that. Listen, I think if you look across the boards in what we're doing as a company right now, from hardware to software to services, in many ways, it's really centered on how do we empower what's ahead of us.
We've got a question here from Emily.
Hi, this is Emily from Montreal. So I heard that there were some features that were designed for health and wellness while we're all working from home. For some reason, I can't really find any info about them online. So can you tell me what they are and where I can find them? And while we're at it, can you actually tell me why Microsoft really cares about my health and wellness anyways?
Listen, at the end of the day, I'll come back to kind of our mission as a company, which is empowering every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. And that can't just be about tools. It needs to be about how we inspire people and care for people as they really aspire to do amazing things. Without question, the pandemic has taught us a lot. We often talk about it as I talk with customers, which is by virtue of our scope, I'll call it, and having millions of users around the world on Office and Office 365 and Microsoft 365 and Windows, we're able to study patterns. And obviously this is all highly de-anonymized or depersonalized, but really understanding how people are interacting with our technology, watching work patterns. And we've been able to do so from Asia when the pandemic first emerged, all the way through Europe to North America, and frankly, all the way back around again. And we've published a lot of that research in something called the Work Trend Index. And what we know and we can see, not only just in the data, but obviously in talking to customers and talking to users, is we're struggling. And we can each relate to this. We talked about it a little bit at the beginning. I've certainly had my moments. It's hard to find that starting point in the day that is the transition between personal life and work life, and having the same challenges at the end of the day. And so this idea that says, how do we use technology as a way to empower people to ensure that they're creating space to look after themselves? And what's kind of cool is tech's amazing at that. And things like artificial intelligence is a simple example. This idea that says, hey, how do I look at your calendar as an individual, again, personalized to you as an individual, not broadly publicized in terms of information, to say, hey, using something like Cortana, I can say, hey, Cortana, block time for me to focus. And this idea, and I often use the analogy of athletes, right? And if we think about professional athletes, you have these moments of peak performance and exceptional performance that need to be followed by these moments of recovery. And we're not doing that today. And things like artificial intelligence can nudge us, as it's often referred to say, hey, go create some space to find some rest and recovery. Similarly, again, using some of those same capabilities of artificial intelligence to help sort of connect it. One of the big ones that's coming out that may have been referred to in the question, we announced the idea of introducing a virtual commute inside Teams. And again, speaking personally, I had a 45-minute commute each way to the office every day, and I was an office person, I'll be honest. That commute afforded me my transition from my personal life to my professional back to my personal. We've lost that. And so this idea of, again, using nudges and artificial intelligence to create space at the end of the day to transition, super powerful, and doesn't require us to make a lot of changes. It's really the technology creating those. But at the same time, it's also this recognition, which is a lot of people live and accomplish all of their work inside the office suite. And so whether that be Outlook or Teams, there's a lot that we can play a role in. Most recently this week, we announced some features in Outlook to create breaks in meetings. And so that meetings are intentionally scheduled for 25 minutes instead of 30 to allow that transition time. That used to be a walk down the hallway that we don't do anymore. And obviously we want to be able to empower individuals to create those settings, but also create platforms for organizations to set it as an organizational policy.
We got a question here on Twitter. It says, I know Microsoft has their own screen reading software, but I like to use JAWS. Do you guys work closely with third parties to make sure things like accessibility features designed by others will continue to work when your software is updated?
Without question, we've always taken, I'll say, a very broad ecosystem approach. And so as we think about the next versions of our software, how do we bring the ecosystem along in terms of APIs, any of those critical design changes? What I would say has been foundational is we've really sort of taken this strategy, which is trying to minimize the amount of change in that hard-coded context. But even in the user interface, and we've talked a bit about that already, which is change is hard. we recognize that absolutely, and we look at it as an incredible responsibility we have, acknowledging there are millions of users, both able-bodied and those that may need to use assistive devices like JAWS. And so absolutely, we work with the ecosystem to ensure, as we make changes, that they too are empowered to make those changes. Again, really back to that sort of core of our mission of empowering every person on the organization or on the planet to achieve more. It's something that we take very much to heart, including accessibility.
I think we can see that definitely taking place. It's interesting because there's two sides to this. If you're using JAWS, you're reliant on JAWS. But what I'm encouraging people who listen, and anybody who listens to me, frankly, to do is learn Narrator as well, because it's all tools in the toolbox, right? So I think it's about knowing how these systems work. That's the key. Narrator, as I say, and Grant, you'll back me up on this, I'm sure, has come along a massive way since the days when, from Windows XP, Windows 7 to Windows 10, even in the early days of Windows 10, where it wasn't perfect either. It has moved on a lot. I would say the last 2-3 years has been a massive shift forward. Anybody can now go to a PC, hold down Control, Windows, and press the Enter key, and you've got a fully fledged operational screen reader that you can customize. There are tutorials in there. There's a full suite of ways on how to learn it, get access to other resources. The support for Braille is now there via an additional download pack, granted, but it's there. And the fact is that it has become such a fully fledged thing that I wonder down the line, and I have to be very careful here because I get a lot of hate on this. Whenever I say, maybe it's time, to look at something else, or, maybe Narrator could take over JAWS one day. I think that's an unhealthy conversation to have, actually. I think if JAWS works for you, and I think in the employment situation, yes, it does. But for home users, I think something like Narrator is perfect for that. But what is good to see is that clearly there is a strong relationship between Vispero, who are the company behind Freedom Scientific that makes JAWS. There's a clear working partnership going on there. Does Freedom Scientific always keep up? God knows they try, and they try hard. But, obviously there are always things moving along. But that's the nature of the beast, right? And even Narrator will sometimes struggle to catch up because it's not all one guy that's running the whole thing, right? I mean, it's not just one guy sitting there pushing out all these updates and, coding it all up and firing it out. There's teams and teams and teams of people doing all this. So, it will sometimes have a bit of a lag that will stretch down to us as blind people. But I have to say, I feel more positive about it now than I've ever felt. Grant, I don't know if you agree with that.
Yeah, I tend to think that it's, really important to learn as many screen readers as you can, Narrator as well as NVDA or non-visual desktop access, just for versatility, for troubleshooting, and in case one app happens to work better with one screen reader. I'm probably more, I've used JAWS pretty much since I was in grade, grade 1 or 2, and I've seen it evolve over the years. And as a power user of Windows, what I really like is just the ability to customize pretty much every aspect of the experience. What I would like to come first on the Braille display, whether I would like to see, the control type or the control name or the control state, whether I would like to have certain keys echoed and certain keys not echoed, whether I would like to hear, a sound or have the voice change as the font changes, that kind of thing. And those are all capabilities that are present in JAWS. But I certainly agree that Narrator, the evolution of Narrator has really been fantastic. And I look forward to continuing to see this very serious screen reader evolve further.
Okay, so we've got 2 more questions for you before we let you go, but the first one's a little bit more personal, which is, when you're 15 plus years, again, not to date you, at Microsoft, and any personal highlights that really stand out for you in terms of, I don't know, accomplishments or just milestones?
Are these personal stories or business stories?
But you've been there for a while. You've seen so many changes in the operating systems, in the software, in the leadership of the company, right? And you've seen everything that the company has done, just in the world. Quite honestly, like I'm sure there's some moments that you're like, I'm really happy that I'm here.
I'll maybe answer on the dimension because I do get this question, which is, hey, why have you stayed as long as you have? One, which is there's a big piece of it, which is the people, and so that's more I'll say inside the company, which is it's amazing to be able to tap into a collective community of 150,000 people around the world and all of the cultures and expertise that they bring. That's unique in many ways. You don't get to do that, I'll say, in a small Canadian company. So there's a big piece of it for me around the people. The second piece, which is a little bit to my earlier comment around the mission, this idea that's really about empowering every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. Very bold, very aspirational. But what it intrinsically does for many employees is creates sort of this natural connection to everything that we do. I say this with the deepest amount of honesty and transparency, which is having the opportunity to look after our modern workplace and security business is a humbling opportunity for me, which is, I think about it in the context of millions of users in the country. From one day I could be going from talking to elementary students that are using it in the classroom to the next day talking to a CIO of, frankly, the largest companies in the country. Listening and understanding and seeing how they're using our technology, even the discussion here with Steve and Grant, how we're empowering people irrespective of ability to do pretty profound things. And I think that's just such an inspiring thing. And we see it emerge in how people operate in our company-wide hackathon. It's the single largest private hackathon that happens in the world. The vast majority of those projects tend to orient around accessibility at the core and try to solve accessibility problems. And I think that's just an incredible reflection of the employees' connection to the mission that has been created. So that's a little bit on the company side. On the personal side, listen, it's just been an unbelievable journey. I've had a great opportunity to work across so many parts of our business, but it's fun just in the context of this conversation, which is having been part of, I'll say, the office business since 2007. I've seen a lot of change, and to be there to launch things that were Office Live Workspace. It was our first consumer version of, I'll call it OneDrive or SharePoint, and the idea of being able to share files between consumers, to Office Live Small Business, again, something that we don't offer anymore, but the ability to bring small businesses online with a domain and a website and business level email communication in a country like Canada, where 99% of our DNA are SMBs. That was just awesome. And to see, frankly, where we are today, 9 years later since launching Office 365, how far we've come from that initial sort of small business-centric service. And then you look at capabilities like Teams, and you humbly reflect on what we've been through over the last year. There's a big piece of this, obviously, lots of press on Satya's statements of, hey, we've seen 2 years worth of transformation in 2 months. But it's been this sort of humbling role that we've played as digital first responder, which is helping every organization, irrespective of industry and size, try to find these moments to become resilient in what has been a very challenging year, and frankly, still has some ambiguity as to what the future looks like. And to have that opportunity to participate in that and be there alongside our customers and our partners to help Canada is pretty exciting. And you don't get a lot of opportunities to do that. And so it's just been an amazing experience for me, for sure.
Okay, last question from Stuart on Quick Assist.
Hi, my name is Stuart Lawler, and I'm from Ireland. One of the interesting things for me in working from home in the last year has been the use by colleagues of the Quick Assist app from Microsoft. I'd love if that app was usable by screen readers. Is there anything in the roadmap that might make that possible?
Awesome feedback. That's the first I've heard. And so I will take that as a moment for myself to go learn and maybe to a little bit of the last question I just answered, which is unlock the collective capacity of a pretty amazing organization. Let me take that one away. It wasn't one I was expecting as a question, but I'm more than happy to play a role and try to figure out an answer for sure.
Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We hope to have you on again, or maybe just another episode of Double Tap TV, so we can have some more conversation about all this fun stuff. But thank you for joining us on this Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV.
Double Tap TV's Town Hall will be right back. This is Double Tap TV Town Hall.
Thank you, Dave. We are back on this Town Hall edition of Double Tap TV. Thank you so much for being here, guys. If you want to get involved like we do on the regular TV show, by all means, it's feedback@ami.ca. Of course, our email address. On Twitter, if you're not following us, why don't you get on that? It's at Double Tap Canada, and now on Instagram at doubletap.online. I am Marc Aflalo with Stephen Scott and Grant Hardy this week. We've got some more questions still on the tap, you guys. Are you okay? You guys are going to stick around here? You think you can handle some more, Stephen?
Well, you don't give me an option, really, so of course I'm going to stay around. I'm loving this. This is great fun.
Grant, you're still awake? We're still good to go?
Let's do this.
Okay, we've got a question from Kelly in Toronto.
Hi, everybody. Kelly McDonald from Blindsided and Kelly and Company with a question for the guys. Fellows, when I work from home outside, sometimes I position my phone or my computer in a bad spot, I guess, because it tells me it's going to shut down when they heat up from the sun. Any ideas, other than obviously either not taking it out or putting it in some better position? What can we do to be careful of that? Because obviously we don't want to damage anything. It's always nice at home too, because from the smart speaker I can listen to the Kelly and Company podcast, which sometimes I do have to say loads slowly, but I'm told that's due to the fact that so many people are trying to check it out since it's in demand. But you guys at Double Tap certainly can relate to that.
Shocking. And, Kelly says that, but, the fact is we all know that Double Tap Canada blows it out of the water every time. Anyway, moving on. To your point, Kelly, I think there are lots of things you can do. I mean, if you're using your phone, for example, what I have on my phone is a silicone case, and I turn my phone upside down because I'm not using the screen usually. I've usually got a keyboard next to it, so I'm typing away on that, so that's fine. But if you are using the phone and actually using the touchscreen input, the best thing is put it back in your pocket when you're done. I know that might seem counterintuitive because it's obviously warm outside and you're just going to heat your phone up even more, but direct sunlight is really going to heat it up. And I would also say, there are these little stands you can get, usually like $15 on Amazon or something, and you have little cooling fans in them. So, if you're having to use your laptop outside and you are having difficulty keeping it cool, you can actually buy these little devices, very simple actually, just a stand with little fans in it. And I think that's a pretty cool way of keeping it cool, I guess. Otherwise, get back in the house, Kelly. What are you doing?
You could use your phone for work and just bring it into the pool with you. I mean, that is if your pool is cool enough to cool down your phone. That's always an option, guys.
Is it bad to say that I have actually done a meeting on Teams in my hot tub?
With the camera on or off?
Off. Well, I hope it was off.
Guys, thank you so much for being part of this town hall. It's been a lot of fun. You guys make it that much better, so I'm glad that I have you guys by my side. On behalf of our guests, Jason Brommett from Microsoft, Stephen Scott, and Grant Hardy, thank you guys for being here. Please do follow these town halls. You can get them on the AMI TV app, either on iOS and now on Android. And we will see you again on another episode of Double Tap TV or Double Tap TV Town Hall.
Hosted by Marc Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Executive producer Marc Aflalo. Guests Grant Hardy, Sean Priest, and Jason Brommett. Editing Marc Aflalo and Cody Chambers. Graphics Will Attar. Voiceovers Anna Vicino. Production assistants Wendy Kaufman and Zachary Aflalo. Integrated Described Video Specialist Ron Rickford. Coordinating producer Jennifer Johnson. Director Production Kara Nye. Director Programming Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming John Melville. President and CEO David Arrington. Prizing provided by Belkin and Benjilock. Copyright 2021 Accessible Media Inc.